What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, give ourselves a jam-packed show as we have a lot of volleyball to discuss, such as Stanford taking down Pitt in 5 on Friday, but SMU took down Stanford on Sunday. What is going on in the ACC? Who wants to win that conference outright? Also, how about Kansas State pulling off some impressive wins over the week? Even though Kansas did take them down, Kansas State is looking like a pretty dangerous team, if you ask me, coming out of that Big 12. Also, we had Nebraska just continuing to roll. Even though they did drop a set in Big Ten Conference play, they are still undefeated. I got to see them in person, which was an absolute treat. Also, the Hurricanes is just rolling as their modern day will be clashing in the CIF Open Division, SoCal Regional Final, and State Semifinal. Who will come out on top? And will our Christian committee be amended, or will they especially make the state final? Hand me a volleyball. 7 next. Then I'm about to take the volleyball action here on Set Point. It's Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you've made your way into episode 325 of Set Point. And without any further delay, let's begin. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without iSports Radio providing the platform to go live on YouTube, Twitch, or on X. Please do follow iSports Radio on several different social media platforms, aka our only 2 platforms such as X and TikTok, at iSports Radio. Also, subscribe to iSports Radio on YouTube. We would greatly, greatly, greatly appreciate it. We're trying to reach 500 subscribers, and with your help, we could definitely make it happen. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe to iSports Radio. Also, make sure to, again, check out all of our other shows, because for the last 11 years, iSports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, what I did yesterday, and other authorized media personnel, to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Thank you to everyone for all of your support and for making iSports Radio your direct feed for all that sports. A huge shout out to our 2 sponsors, Planet Jerky, Premium Brisket Beef Jerky, and Vital Apparel. So without any further delay, let's get on into what our sponsors are all about. I shall see you in a little bit.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clinking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other cologne like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go. For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop, including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
That's right, everybody. Definitely check out all of both of our amazing sponsors, Vital Apparel and Planet Jerky, Premier Brisket Beef Jerky. And we appreciate them for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. And the way you can follow Set Point on social media is on X and TikTok at set_point.ie. I finally got around to posting a little on TikTok, even though I still have a little bit more to go. And then you could also follow me personally on X as well at Teran Rodriguez 1. And then you could also follow me or follow Set Point on Instagram at set_point.iesr. And before we get on into the volleyball action, let me just do something quick, real quick. All right, that's a little better. Looks like my camera was a little smudged, so that's a little better. Anyway, all right, now let's get on into the volleyball action. Sorry for that little bit of a delay, but anyway, gotta look good because you gotta look good and talk volleyball good. So anyway, week 12 of the NCAA women's volleyball season. We gotta start off with that. We had some wild matches, some close calls. Starting Wednesday, we had number 4 Texas barely getting by Auburn of all teams. Ooh, Auburn. I mean, they have a good head coach in Brent Crouch, but honestly, it's like the fact that they needed 5 to beat Auburn, that's a little concerning if you ask me, if you're Texas. But Tori Stafford saved the day. She had 32 kills, which was outstanding. Ramsey Gary also had 19 digs. Emma Halter also had 17 digs. Kari Spears, 14 kills. Auburn was led by Liz Markovska, who had 20 kills, while Lauren Dreves added 17 kills. Markovska also added 14 digs as well, as Texas hit 296, and they had 76 digs, which was pretty solid. They did miss 17 serves, which I frowned a little bit upon, but I mean, I'll say this about Texas. Look, they're still good. They're not going to be going anywhere. It's just that I'm a little surprised they needed 5 to beat Auburn, but it is what it is, and sometimes that's just how you have to win. And sometimes it's better to win ugly than to not win at all. And that's just how Texas rolled. They went up 2-0 in the match, and then Auburn started to catch their second win. Maybe it had to do with the fan, with traveling and whatnot, but I felt Texas could have won a little bit more convincingly. So still, Texas is kind of leaving some meat on the bone, but I digress. Jumping to the Big 12, we had Kansas State continuing its stellar season as they took down number 21 Baylor in 4. Once again, shout out to my good friend and former Set Point guest, Steve Astor. He just continues to do great things as the assistant coach for the Wildcats, as K-State was led by Shaylee Myers, who had 21 kills. She had 13 digs as well, and then Anaya Clinton added 14 kills. As a team, Kansas State hit 235. They had 67 digs. They only missed 10 serves and had 5 aces, which is pretty good. They had 13 blocks as a team, which was pretty nice. As Baylor only hit 188, they had 57 digs. They were led by Ksenia Rachmanchik, who had 23 kills. She almost had half the kills that Baylor had overall, but there was no other player with double-digit kills on Baylor, as their next kill leader was Manuela Bibinbe, who had 8 kills. So Kansas State, look, this isn't surprising that Kansas State was able to pull off a great win like this. I think Kansas State might be the most underappreciated team that isn't ranked, and I think it shows within their body of work, and it's great to see them doing amazing things. I think they're going to be a dangerous team if and when they make the NCAA tournament. I'm certain they'll make the NCAA tournament. I can't imagine them missing the big dance, but crazier things have happened before. Staying in the Big 12 and jumping to Thursday, we had number 22 Colorado upending TCU in 5. Now, this was a big win for the Buffs, and the Buffs actually took a nice little step forward in terms of trying to host in the NCAA, in the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament, as Colorado was led by Anna Berlovic, who had 24 kills. Lily Dwinell had 13 kills, and Sydney Jordan added 12 kills. Colorado only hit 172. They did have 7 blocks, and they had 60 digs, and they also had 10 aces. That's what really stood out to me. TCU, on the other hand, they were really good in the blocking department. They had 19 blocks, 54 digs. They hit 220. So they had the numbers. It's just that bit set that they lost was unfortunately a punch to the gut, as they lost that fifth set 19-17. The Horned Frogs were led by Evan Hendricks, who had 19 kills, while Lauren Murphy added 12 kills and Becca Kelly added 11 kills. All right, this loss is kind of a tough one for TCU, and I use that term a lot, but this one I think is the definition of tough, because TCU came into the week number 16 in the AVCA rankings. Now, they lose this one, and you know who's right behind them that was surging at the time? USC. So TCU might have, unless they get some help along the way, and you're about to see why this loss is going to hurt them, unless they get some help along the way in terms of the other teams losing in that mid area, in that middle of the pack area, that's like going to get the last few spots in terms of hosting the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament. I don't know if TCU is going to host. This loss really hurts them in terms of their odds of hosting in the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament. I hope that's not the case. TCU has been through a lot. They lost one of their top players against Penn State. They did upend Penn State. If this would be so unfortunate if this loss were to keep them on the outside looking in terms of being in the top 16. But there's a lot of teams that are knocking on that door in terms of wanting to host in the first couple of rounds of the NCAA tournament. And like I said, USC is one of them. I'll get into them a little bit later. But for now, Colorado, they kind of have a compelling argument in terms of wanting to host in the first couple of rounds of the NCAA tournament. And I think that'd be huge. But they're going to need a few more wins to try to get to that echelon. And I don't think they have any bad losses by any means. So Colorado, again, does make a compelling argument, but they're going to need to get some help along the way if they want to sneak into that 16-15 spot in terms of the top 16 of the NCAA tournament. Jumping to Friday, where it was raining quite a bit in the California area, depending on where you were at, we had this amazing upset. We had number 5 Stanford taking down number 3 Pitt in 5. This one was a doozy. Pitt was actually up 24-21 in set 1, and then Stanford rattles off 5 straight points, courtesy of the amazing serving from Aaliyah Rubin. And then the 5th set, Pitt is up 14-11, and then it looks like Stanford hit it out, but then there was a touch call, and Stanford was able to save one match point. And you know who stepped to the service line, Aaliyah Rubin. She was able to bring Stanford back from 14-11 down, and eventually they wound up winning the fifth set 16-14. So Aaliyah Rubin was single-handedly one of the reasons why Stanford won this match. And that was a massive win for the Cardinal, as Julia Blashoff led the way with 20 kills. Rubin had 16 kills. She had 8 digs. And even though she only had one service ace, that one service ace came in the fifth set. And it doesn't show in her numbers, but she just served really tough. And this girl is really talented. Jordan Harvey also had 15 kills, and then Lizzie Andrew added 10 kills. As a team, the Cardinal hit 282, and then they also had 53 digs. They had 13 blocks, which was huge because you have to have really good blocking when you play a team like Pitt. And then even though they had 6 aces and they had 15 service errors, it showed that they were serving tough. They weren't like serving lollipop serves and whatnot. Anyway, Pitt was led by Olivia Babcock, obviously, who had 28 kills and 10 digs. The Panthers also had 15 kills from Blair Bayless, 11 kills from Marina Pezesh. Is that how her last name is? Pezelish. Marina Pezelish. Mallory Meyer also, Bree Kelly had 10 kills as well, as Mallory Meyer had 13 digs, along with Brooke Mosier to lead Pitt in that department. Unfortunately, it was just not enough, and this is going to be one of those matches that Pitt is going to want to have back, which you're about to see later on. And this was actually a nice little homecoming for Dan Fisher, as he actually did start off his coaching career at University of Pacific. I think he coached their men's team back when they still had a men's team before it got sadly discontinued. But yeah, it was a big win for the Panthers. Big win for the Cardinal, big loss for the Panthers. And you're just going to have to roll with the bad versus the good, if you ask me. But it is what it is. And then we had another upset. Jumping to the Big 12, we had the holy war between number 23 BYU and unranked Utah. And the Utes defended its home court, and they reverse swept the Cougars, which was very big in my opinion. Utah just really look. I talk about K-State being one of the most underappreciated teams in terms of the unranked realm of Division I, but Utah is also pretty darn good as well. They hit 268. They had 7 aces to only 8 service errors, which is pretty nice. They had 14 blocks as a team. Cameron Gabadlo led the way with 23 kills. Emery Moai added 18 kills, and then Nia Maria Joki had 13 kills, which was pretty darn impressive. And then for BYU, they were led by Sully Davis, continuing her great freshman year, 28 kills, 9 digs. Claire Little Chambers had, who I thought, a big breakout game. She kind of needed to snap out of that little funk, as she had 18 kills. Brielle Kamaver had 11 kills, no hitting errors, which was pretty nice. As BYU hit 299, but did not win, which is pretty surprising. But BYU is kind of concerning to me. This is kind of an interesting fact. BYU has no wins in the month of November, which kind of makes you wonder. I'm very surprised, just because BYU is normally not that bad of a team. BYU actually is pretty solid. I guess this is kind of just, they've kind of hit one of those tough snags in their schedule, just because, well, for starters, the Big 12 is kind of one of the more intriguing conferences out there. And then for BYU, they just seem to be getting in their own way. They've lost 3 straight, which is really puzzling if you ask me. And yeah, they haven't. I know this is skewering stats, but they've not won a match in the month of November. And believe it or not, November is actually halfway done. I know they've only played 3 matches so far in November, and they definitely have a chance to make amends. But holy guacamole, I did not expect them to lose to Utah. I mean, Utah's a good team. Let's keep it a buck. Utah is indeed a fantastic team, but in a rivalry match like that, where you're trying to get your first win of the month, you gotta come out swinging a little bit better than that. And Utah or BYU just did not do that. Utah, on the other hand, they also make a compelling argument to make the NCAA tournament. I think they can definitely do so. And this is the last time that BYU and Utah will be squaring off against one another. They'll be facing off against one another on Wednesday, November 26th. So BYU's got to get up off the mat sooner or later. But if they don't, then they'll make the tournament. It's just that I think their seeding is going to be taking a massive hit. Speaking of seeding and whatnot, number 2 Kentucky survived a big upset bid from Oklahoma. Now, Eva Hudson was not 100%. The fact that if we all remember that the Tennessee match, she actually got hurt. She hurt her ankle, or she landed on someone's ankle, and then she was in pain, yet she still finished the match. Regardless, number 2 Kentucky was able to reverse sweep Oklahoma. Oklahoma came in with so much firepower. First 2 sets, it looked like Oklahoma was the much better team, and then Kentucky eked out that third set 28-26, and then the fourth set they pretty much handled. In the fifth set, even though it was kind of a tug of war in that fifth set, they were able to win that one quite nicely. In close fashion, though, 15-12, but regardless, the Wildcats were led by Eva Hudson, who had 19 kills and 9 digs. Brooklyn DeLay had 16 kills, and then Lizzie Carr had 11 kills. She's starting to improve and get better and better. Jordan Daly also had 8 kills, which is pretty good if you ask me. So overall for Kentucky, this was a massive win for them, just because it keeps their seeding alive in terms of like being a top 4 seed, and it also inches them closer to being the number 1 seed of the SEC tournament. Still feels weird saying SEC tournament, just because this is the first year they've brought it back, which I think is pretty darn cool if you ask me. And then for Oklahoma, they were led by Alexis Shelton, who had 23 kills, Imani Bush, 13 kills, Alyssa Flack, 11 kills, and then Camille Gibson, 9 kills. Oklahoma surprisingly hit .301 and held Kentucky to a hitting percentage of .255, but it just was not enough. And the crazy thing is that Oklahoma had 17 blocks as a team, and they held compared to Kentucky's 9 blocks as a team. So again, Oklahoma had some of the numbers, but unfortunately, Kentucky just kind of caught their second wind in that third set, which I thought was pretty darn impressive, if you ask me. So overall, I just feel that Oklahoma, they're still a solid team. It's just that Kentucky, they had a nice little surge in that third set. And Eva Hudson, we got to talk about her and how she was just overall impressive. She's not even close to 100%, but she's just absolutely amazing. Jumping to the Big Ten, we had number 1 Nebraska handling UCLA, but this is a big but. UCLA, unlike the other Big Ten opponents that Nebraska had faced prior, UCLA actually became the first team to hand Nebraska a set loss in Big Ten conference play. It was Nebraska's first set loss since when they faced Creighton, and it was the first loss in Big Ten conference play. And I get it. Nebraska has a few excuses. First of all, they're on the road. Second of all, there's no Terraflex, so they're not used to playing on hardwood floor. And I totally understand, because playing on Terraflex is way more different than playing on hardwood floor. And then UCLA is one of the more better defensive teams. You got to remember that UCLA has Lola Schumacher as their libero. And then UCLA also kind of shuffled their setters. They went with the Zayna Meyer. No, they still had Kate Duffy. I guess they didn't bring in. No, I guess not. I guess they started with Meyer and then shuffled to Kate Duffy. But either way, Nebraska just still handled business. They had Andy Jackson leading the way with 15 kills. Harper Murray had 14 kills, and then Rebecca Alec had 13 kills. This was also the first match that Nebraska did not hit 300 or better, as they hit 299, which is a kick to the teeth. That stat is courtesy of Lincoln Arneal. And Lainey Choboy, she had 14 digs, and then Bergen Riley had 11 digs. Something I learned is that Nebraska has a lot of talent in terms of libero talent. I mean, you also got to remember this name, Olivia Mock. She is really good as well. But for the Bruins, they were led by Maggie Lee, who had 20 kills and 10 digs. Sheridan Leverett added 17 kills. Mariana Singletary added 12 kills. UCLA hit 221. Unfortunately, it was just not enough, as those gutty little Bruins just could not beat Nebraska. I will say this, that Nebraska actually did not have as many digs as UCLA had, as UCLA actually outdug them in that department by 11. But still, UCLA needed to win the match, but they didn't. Now, I will say this for UCLA. I think this reinforces their odds of improving their seeding, and they should be a lock for the NCAA tournament, as the day after they wound up beating Rutgers in 3, and now they are actually at their record is now 14-10, which, in case you're wondering, that is kind of the magic number, because they have 4 matches remaining and they're guaranteed a 500 record. Because in order to make the NCAA tournament as an at-large, you have to have at least a record of 500 or better. And with UCLA having a record of 14-10, even if they somehow lose their last 4 matches, UCLA is guaranteed a winning record, which is great, because last year they finished with a record under 500 and they missed the NCAA tournament because of that. So there you go. Anyway, jumping over to Saturday, we had another Big Ten, or not, well, Big Ten, I'll save that for later. Yeah, I'll save that Big Ten match for later. But Big 12, we had Iowa State upending TCU in 4. All right, this is kind of a concern for TCU. This loss, I think, might actually ended TCU's chances of hosting in the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament, because it was one thing to lose to Colorado, but now it's kind of another thing to lose to Iowa State. 2 losses against 2 teams that were ranked below you. And I mean, the Colorado loss was a 5-set barn burner, and Colorado is pretty darn good, as we all know. But losing to Iowa State, that's a little shaky if you ask me. TCU was led by Evan Hendricks, who had 23 kills. She was kind of the only player in double digits in terms of kills, as Lauren Murphy added 9 kills. TCU only hit 182. They really struggled in the blocking department, only totaling 5 blocks. Now, Iowa State, on the other hand, they had 7 blocks, which isn't that big of an improvement, but still. And I will also say this about TCU. They held Iowa State to only a hitting percentage of .209, but Nayeli Tia led the way with 20 kills for Iowa State. And then Amiri Hendricks Walker added 8 kills. And then Maya Duckworth and Tierney Jackson both had 7 kills for the Cyclones. So yeah, those 2 losses really kind of hurt TCU's chances of hosting the NCAA tournament. And they're now going to need a lot of help, because you're about to see in the AVCA rankings, they went down quite a bit. Next, let's go to the Big Ten, this Big Ten upset. And this one, I think, really opened my eyes. Oregon upset number 9 Purdue on the road in 5, which was very good in my opinion. This was a big win. This was kind of the Oregon team I thought I would see this year, as Alana Clemente led the way with 25 kills. Sophia Myers added 15 kills. Valentina Valette added 16 kills. Oregon hit a whopping 338. And like I said, this is the match that I expected. This was the Oregon I was hoping to see this season, because I was singing praises about Oregon this year. I was saying that they were going to be underrated, and no offense to Purdue. And with all due respect to Purdue, they have shattered expectations this year, but I thought this was kind of the Purdue that I would expect this year. But this one loss doesn't really take away from the hard work that Purdue has had, as Grace Heaney led the way for Purdue with 21 kills. Kenna Woolard added 20 kills. And I will say this for Purdue. They hit 342, which wasn't bad. It felt like defense was not played, and I feel that's not really Purdue style. But Oregon pulling off a big win really helps Oregon's chances of making the NCAA tournament. I saw something on bracketology that Oregon was going to be the last 4 in, along with Illinois. I mean, Purdue should be in, and they should host in the NCAA tournament in at least the first couple rounds. I just don't know if they're going to be they're nowhere near a top 4 seed though. But yeah, Oregon, that's definitely their best win in the Trent Kirsten era. And it's a testament to how far they've come in terms of the start of Big Ten conference play all the way till now. And then I guess a few other results here and there. Wisconsin swept Illinois, which I was kind of surprised Wisconsin swept Illinois that easily. I mean, Illinois is going to really need to start stepping it up if they want to make the NCAA tournament, because they have 4 matches left and they're 1 game above 500. So if math serves me correctly, they got to win at least 2 matches of their last 4. If they go 1-3 or 0-4, then they miss the NCAA tournament because they'll be under 500. I mean, bracketology has them as the last 4 in, along with Oregon, but I need to see more from Illinois. I really want to see what Illinois can do this week, and I want to see how they respond after a tough loss to Wisconsin. And then Kansas swept K-State, which I thought was a very good win for Kansas. I thought Kansas really handled that Kansas State well. I'm glad they were able to, not get caught in the trap. So I think for K-State, it's a tough loss, but the fact that they split the season series with the Jayhawks is pretty impressive. Staying in the Big 12 realm on Saturday, we had number 8 Arizona State outlasting Colorado in 5. This was a tough loss for the Buffs. They actually were down 0-2 to start, managed to win the next 2 sets, but then lost at the 5th set 15-12. As the Sun Devils were led by Noemi Glover, who had 31 kills. Bailey Miller had 14 kills. Colby Neal added 10 kills as the Sun Devils hit 298, which was pretty nice if you ask me. And then the Buffs were led by Anna Berlovic, who had 28 kills. Kayla Payne had 13 kills. Sydney Jordan had 10 kills. Unfortunately, it was just not enough as the Buffs, they hit 287, which was nice. And they also had 16 blocks, which was even more nice. And they had 5 aces from Berlovic and 8 aces as a team. Unfortunately, it was just not enough as they just could not solve the Sun Devils. But Colorado is making a compelling argument to host in the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament. But we shall see. All right, jumping over to Sunday, we got to start off with this ACC matchup. We had SMU upending Stanford in 4, which was a big win, especially since Stanford was coming off of that 5-set win over Pitt. That said, Stanford did suffer a tough loss in terms of one of their players getting hurt, as Logan Parks actually got hurt, and she was replaced by Taylor Yu. And SMU, on the other hand, they were led by Malia Jones, who had 24 kills. Kennedy Rogers had 13 kills, and then Madison Shear had 12 kills. As a team, SMU hit a blistering 384, which was very good. My only glaring stat for SMU was their serving. They had 15 service errors, but I can tell they were serving tough. Stanford, on the other hand, they had a square service ace service error ratio, 6 aces, 6 service errors. They only hit 191, and it kind of shown because they had to go with Taylor Yu off the bench after Logan Parks got hurt. And it sucks because I hope for Stanford's sake, Taylor Parks is not hurt long-term. The Cardinals were led by Lizzie Andrew and Aaliyah Rubin, who both had 11 kills. Their offense as a whole was pretty balanced, though. Jordan Harvey had 9 kills. Julia Blyashov and Erica Sayer both had 8 kills. It was not enough, though, as I don't want to say that if Logan Parks doesn't get hurt, Stanford wins, but I just feel that SMU had a lot to prove, and I feel Stanford losing Logan Parks just really hurt their chances, really kind of hurt them for the most part. And that is pretty much, wait. Staying in the ACC realm, we had this doozy of a match. We had number 7 Louisville reverse sweeping number 14 Miami of Florida, which was massive in my opinion. All the sets other than set 4 were close, as all the sets were decided by 3 points or less. As Louisville really stepped it up, they had 15 blocks as a team. The Cardinals were led by Peyton Peterson, who had 24 kills. Cara Cressy added 13 kills. Chloe Chicoine, 10 kills. Calissa Blackshear, 8 kills. Louisville hit 289, while Miami only hit 261. And we all know who led Miami in the loss, unfortunately. Flo Marie Heredia Colon, who had 43 kills. She is just on a tear. She also had 3 aces and 9 digs. She is just an unreal player for Miami. She just puts up these video game numbers, and it sucks because Miami just unfortunately could not find a way to win that third set, which could have honestly been a massive win that could have all but ensured Miami to hosting in the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament. But Miami's next kill leader was Dahlia Wilson, who had 9 kills. That's tough for Miami, but the fact that they went on the road and pushed Louisville to 5, even though they got reverse swept, was pretty impressive. And then next, I actually got to talk. We need to have a talk about Penn State. So Penn State, I forgot to mention, on Friday, they got swept by Minnesota. But I got to talk about this. They won on Sunday. They outlasted the Ohio State in 5, but they had to go 5, which Penn State, in my opinion, they have a lot of problems. They have more problems than a geometry math book, in my opinion, as Penn State was led by Kennedy Martin. She had 34 kills. They also got the win on I think it was their director of ops birthday. Anyway, but yeah, Kennedy Martin, she had 434 kills. She had 8 digs. I really got to tip my hat to her, just because she is absolutely impressive. If you ask, she's really having to drag this Penn State team to victory. I can go as far as to say that without Kennedy Martin, I feel Penn State would not be the same team, but I digress. Maggie Mendelson also had 13 kills. Gabrielle Nichols had 11 kills. And as a team, Penn State hit 297. But again, the fact that they needed 5 to take down one of the worst teams in the Big Ten is just baffling, if you ask me. I can't believe that. As the Buckeyes were led by Hannah Jones, who had 23 kills. Kaya Castle added 10 kills. And then they got 9 kills each from Abby Yoder and Navia Gauthier. And they also got 8 kills from Ashley Carr. But again, not enough. Their serving was pretty nice. They had 7 aces and 5 service errors. But again, not enough, as close but couldn't close. So you have that right there. Now let's get on into the match that I attended yesterday. Number 1 Nebraska at number 17 USC. And let's be honest with ourselves, this was kind of expected. Nebraska swept USC. For Nebraska's sake, I'm sure it felt pretty good having to play on Terraflex as opposed to playing on hardwood floor. But it is what it is. As the Nebraska offense, if there's anything I learned from that match, their offense is balanced. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They play so cerebral, and they just you can't expect them to beat themselves. You actually got to force them to make mistakes and whatnot. As they hit 412, they had 54 digs compared to USC's 29. They really patrolled the net well. They had 8.5 blocks. Their offense was balanced. They had 5 different players with 8 or more kills, as they got 10 kills from Virginia Adriano, Harper Murray, and Taylor Landfair. Rebecca Alec added 9 kills, and Andy Jackson had 8 kills. So it's kind of a pick your poison. Who do you stop versus who else can you stop? Because if you try to stop one, there's going to be others that carry the load. And Bergen Riley, I think it's time we have a talk about her possibly being the National Player of the Year, or at the very least, maybe Big Ten Player of the Year or whatnot. She had 14 digs. She had 10 digs through the 2 sets, and she also had 42 assists. So overall, Nebraska, it was my first time seeing Nebraska in person. I just got to tell you, Nebraska fans do not mess around. There was a massive line when I first arrived, and I had to maneuver my way through to get through the media entrance, which, man, Nebraska fans, you know how to show up and show out. I should also mention that UCLA, Nebraska got over 10,000 in attendance, and then this match actually had 9,017 in attendance, which I actually was expecting a little more. It even got to the point where even the cheap seats were were practically filled, which was absolutely amazing, if you ask me. So great job to Nebraska. Great job to Nebraska fans showing up and showing out. And even though USC did see their 9-match win streak snapped, they did break an attendance record. Special thank you to the Nebraska fans. USC was led by London Weejay, who had 10 kills and 13 digs. For being only 5'10", I just got to say, London Weejay is some kind of special, if you ask me. And I got to see her mother in person. I also got to interview her mother a couple weeks ago when she coached at Harvard Westlake. Really nice person, by the way. The Weejay family is absolutely amazing. Adania Falmuina also had 9 kills. Abigail Mullen had 7 kills. My big problem for USC is that even though they had 5 kills in the middle, it still wasn't enough, as they had 5 blocks overall, no service aces, just because Nebraska really serve receives well. They only hit 156, and remember those 54 digs that Nebraska had? USC only had 29 of them. So again, the streak was bound to be broken. As much praise as I've given USC, as much as I love seeing them win, as much as I really want USC to host the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament, I knew they weren't going to win this one. They would have needed to play their best volleyball, or they would have needed to play on hardwood floor in order to win. But that wasn't the case, as USC saw their 9-match win streak snapped. But hey, it's better they lose now than they lose in the NCAA tournament, which speaks to high volumes. They actually did, and you got to remember that this is a USC team that's starting 3 freshmen. They also started 2 redshirt sophomores and only had 2 seniors starting. So overall for USC, I wouldn't want to say that there's no, and Brad Keller will tell it to you like it is. There is no silver linings with this. There's no silver linings. There's no like moral victories when it comes to a loss. A loss is a loss. He's a competitive coach, and I totally don't blame him for saying that there's no silver linings, because he wants to win. He wants to upend the number 1 team. He wants to upend any team, any place, anywhere. Unfortunately, USC, and I don't want to use this as an excuse, USC was just too young, and an experienced Nebraska team, which has so much talent like that, is going to beat a young and inexperienced USC team any day, any time, any place of the week. But it was great to see USC again. I just wish they didn't get waxed. But honestly, I still got to tip my hat to USC for progressively getting better. They really showed some flash in the 3rd set. It's just that they got off to such a slow start. They were down 6-1 to start the set, and I feel them starting slow just kind of led to their doom. And there was one fan behind me who was saying they can't keep giving these free points to, or they can't keep giving these free points to these really good teams. And I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, you're preaching to the choir, buddy. You are preaching to the choir. Anyway, so before we close off week 12 of the NCAA women's volleyball season, I got to talk about the match that I also attended on Friday, Long Beach State hosting UC Davis. So this one was a really interesting match. So Long Beach State, well, for starters, it was their senior night, which was pretty awesome. That being said, you know how it was raining in Southern California? And if you heard some rain, then you know it's probably coming down right now. But it was raining bad. It was raining pretty bad on Friday. And unfortunately for USC, or not USC, unfortunately for Long Beach State, they actually had a leak in their roof. And unfortunately, they couldn't play their match in the Walter Pyramid. So they had to move the match to the Gold Mine, which was the first NCAA women's volleyball match played in the Gold Mine since the Walter Pyramid first opened, which was pretty interesting if you ask me. But the magic really came in the Gold Mine, as Long Beach State upended the Big West Conference leader, UC Davis, in 4 sets, which was pretty impressive. Like the first 2 sets, UC Davis they just looked flat. I'm not sure if it was because they weren't used to playing in a small gymnasium, or an auxiliary gymnasium like Long Beach State's, maybe they were expecting to play in the Walter Pyramid. But Davis just looked flat in the first couple sets. The third set, they looked so much better. They looked like the Davis that I thought they were going to be. But then the fourth set came. Long Beach State was able to eke out that fourth set. It was kind of the battle of the coaching tree, the John Cook coaching tree, as Natalie Regan, the head coach of Long Beach State. She was a former, I think she was statistician or stat analyst for Nebraska. She was kind of also on that 2015 national championship team that Nebraska won. And then Dan Connors was a one-time defensive coordinator and recruiting coordinator for John Cook's team, which I thought was pretty cool. So, yeah, that was pretty cool seeing a nice little full circle moment. I know UC Davis and Long Beach State had that back when Tyler Hildebrand was the head coach a couple of years ago, 2 and 3 years ago, but still, that was a pretty nice touch right there. Anyway, Long Beach State was led by Logan King, who had 16 kills. Sydney Hamaker had 14 kills. She is someone I thought really stepped up. And then Rianne Sheffy had the match-clinching block. She is a senior, by the way, and I thought she really impressed. And then Elisa Gee had 10 kills. Got to remember she transferred in from Oregon, and the fact that she had herself a nice little game was absolutely amazing. Remember, last year she missed all of last year because of recovering from a knee injury. But this match, she was able to make a massive impact. And then, like I mentioned, all the seniors pretty much made a nice little impact. As Rianne Sheffy, she had 6 kills, which was pretty good, if you ask me. And again, she had the match-clinching block, which you can't script any better. Then they also got Presley Yates had 4 blocks. No, I'm sorry, not Presley Yates. It was Nico Thomas. That's her name, Nico Thomas. She had 4 blocks, and then Tatum Hoff, she had 2 service aces and 3 digs. So all in all, the seniors on Long Beach State really contributed. Now for Davis, they were led by Jade Light, who had 14 kills. Brooke Cabino had 13 kills. Breeze Chapinski had 11 kills, as well as Allie Chandler. It seems like the formula to beat Long Beach State is you got to feed the middle. If you feed the middle, as the match goes on, Long Beach State will not be ready for the middle. And Long Beach has really got to do a better job of stopping the middle. For Davis, this loss isn't all that bad because thankfully they did get help on Thursday from UC Santa Barbara, who beat Cal Poly in 5 at the Thunderdome. So thankfully, Davis should be thanking its lucky stars because of that result. Because had Cal Poly beaten Santa Barbara, Davis would be in second place. But thankfully for Davis, they're still in first place with 2 more matches remaining. So this is an interesting situation. So Long Beach State and UC Santa Barbara both clinched due to their wins on Thursday and Friday, respectively. And now there's only 2 spots remaining in terms of the Big West Conference tournament. CSUN, UC Irvine, and Hawaii are all vying for the tournament spots. CSUN is most likely to make the the Big West Conference Championships or Big West Conference Tournament. All they just really need is 1 more win, or at least 1 loss from Irvine or Hawaii. But yeah, it would take a lot for CSUN to miss the Big West Conference Championships. Meanwhile, for UC Irvine, they went 1-1 last week. They got reverse swept by CSUN, which that was a costly loss right there. If Irvine wins that match, they're in a much better position. But unfortunately, they lost because CSUN is really improved. Like, if there's one team that's really improved in the Big West Conference, it's CSUN. And they're going to be a tough out for anybody. And then Hawaii, unfortunately, went 0-2, and they might have a little bit of concern from their setter. But the thing is about Hawaii, they don't control their own destiny. They need to have at least more than 1 win this week than UC Irvine. Otherwise, they won't be making the NCAA tournament by any means. And this is an interesting fact. Unless Hawaii wins out their last 2 games, and then they win out in terms of the Big West Conference Championships, which means they would have to win 3 straight there, and then they win an NCAA tournament match, they'll be finishing the they'll be finishing under 500 for the first time in its program's history. And the last time Hawaii missed the NCAA tournament was 1992. So, and we're not counting 2020 because there was no Big West Conference in post-COVID. So Hawaii's going to need to do a lot in order to try to get back to basically make the Big West Conference championships. That said, if Hawaii does make the Big West Conference championships, then it'll be quite interesting. But that'll do it for the NCAA women's volleyball week number 12. Let's jump on into the AVCA/Teraflex poll for this week. So no one dropped out of the poll, even though a lot of fans are clamoring for Penn State to drop out. It reminds me of NCAA men's volleyball from last season when everyone and their mothers was wondering, why is Penn State still ranked when they have a sub 500 record? Well, this time it's kind of, it feels like that when it comes to Penn State on the women's side. But yeah, 1 through 5 is Nebraska, Kentucky, Texas, Pitt, and Stanford. 6 all the way down is Texas A&M, Louisville, SMU, Arizona State, Wisconsin, Purdue, Creighton, Kansas, Miami, Florida, North Carolina, USC, Indiana, Tennessee, Minnesota, TCU, Colorado, Iowa State, Baylor, Penn State, and BYU. So remember how I said TCU is now in a sticky situation after those 2 losses? TCU dropped a whopping 4 spots, which is not good. So TCU is going to need a lot of help. They're going to need to see Minnesota lose to some blat opponents. They're going to need to see Tennessee lose to some blat opponents. They're going to need to see Indiana lose to some blat opponents. And they're also going to need to see USC lose to some blat opponents as well. So, but if all that happens, TCU will host the first couple of rounds. But I think those 2 losses from last week really hurts TCU's chances of hosting. Anyway, so now we jump on into week number 13 as conference tournaments now start, and this is it. This is basically the start of the final frontier in terms of the in terms of the entirety of the regular season. We only have 2 more matches or 2 more weeks remaining before the NCAA tournament, before that Selection Sunday. Anyway, so nothing on really much on Tuesday. I mean, I guess for my sake, Long Beach State and UC San Diego play. I will say this about UC San Diego. Even though they're eliminated from Big West Conference championship contention, they could still play spoiler. You remember what happened last year when UC Riverside beat UC Santa Barbara. UC Irvine eventually made it, and then eventually UC Santa Barbara didn't even make the conference tournament. So there you go. And then jumping to Wednesday. Wednesday is has the most interesting game. This is the game of the day. USC at Oregon. So you all are thinking, well, Teran, number 16 USC at Oregon, that's an interesting game. Here's some things you got to consider. USC is coming off of a loss to Nebraska, which snapped their 9-game win streak. Oregon is coming off of a win against number 9 Purdue, or then number 9 Purdue. Oregon has not lost to USC in Matthew Knight Arena since 2019, and USC has not swept a two-match series against Oregon since 2015. You also got to remember that USC is very young, and they got to go on the road against Oregon, and that's a 7:30 p.m. start time. I'm not sure if USC is used to playing at 7:30. I know last year they had an 8 p.m. start time against Penn State at Galen, but this time around they're taking on Oregon at Matthew Knight Arena, and Oregon's kind of fighting for their lives in terms of making the NCAA tournament. So I would not be surprised if USC had difficulty beating Oregon. The only thing that would surprise me is if USC convincingly swept Oregon or swept Oregon altogether. I'm expecting Oregon to come out guns a-blazing, and I'm also expecting USC to really have to – they really got to play their game. I mean, you can't compare Nebraska and Oregon because that was just one clunker game that USC had. I'm certain they now know that the door is wide open for them because if USC loses 1 or 2 matches along the way, I don't think they'll be hosting in terms of the NCAA tournament. And I really want USC to host in the NCAA tournament because I would like nothing more to attend the first couple rounds of that NCAA tournament. So USC's got to, and I've been saying this a lot for USC. USC has maybe the most daunting remaining schedule in terms of trying to host in the first couple rounds. They've got Oregon this Wednesday, which is at Oregon. Like I said, that's a tough path. And then Saturday, they're home against Illinois, which that's another team that's fighting for NCAA tournament, for a spot in the NCAA tournament. And then their last two matches, or next week, they're at Michigan and Michigan State, which are also trying to fight for their NCAA tournament lives. And again, USC has got a young team, and that's my biggest fear. USC goes on the road, and then they get intimidated in front of a big crowd and whatnot. But we shall see. Maybe I'll be wrong, and then USC just comes out and just plays like we all expected them to when they had that 9-match win streak, like when they beat Wisconsin, like when they beat Minnesota. Because USC is capable of beating good teams on the road. It's just that against Oregon, they have not won at Oregon in over 6 years, like I mentioned, and Oregon is still pretty darn good. And you got to remember, Trent Kirsten is a UCLA guy. He does not want to lose to USC twice. Anyway, moving on to Thursday, number 11 Purdue is at number 10 Wisconsin. Now that is going to be a banger of a matchup. That one has a lot of seeding implications and whatnot. And then I guess it's also worth noting that Nebraska is hosting Iowa. All Nebraska needs is one more win, and then they clinch at least a share of the Big Ten Conference Championship, which would be not surprising. And then Friday, we have Kansas at BYU, which that should kind of be a good one. I mean, that's going to be a tough one for – wait, USC Illinois is on a Friday? What? I thought it was on a Saturday. Wait a second. I thought USC was playing on Saturday against Illinois. I mean, it kind of makes sense just because their football team is playing on Saturday too. Yeah, wait a second. So the USC website, let me just refresh the USC website real quick. Just because something's not right here, because it originally had, the USC website says Illinois is playing USC on Saturday, while the NCAA website is saying that Illinois is playing USC on Friday. Something is not right here. I'm trusting USC's website because the NCAA can sometimes be an unreliable game changer. Moving on, North Carolina at Florida State is kind of an interesting match. Florida State's kind of also fighting for its tournament lives. Florida State hasn't really had the biggest and most flashiest wins, though they've taken some teams down to the wire, and they've taken some sets off of some certain teams. But North Carolina, if there's one fan of Florida State, it's USC. But North Carolina, as long as they stay consistent, North Carolina should be fine, and they can't afford to lose in terms of wanting to host in the first couple rounds of the NCAA tournament. Because that would be big for North Carolina. That's a testament to their team, considering their coach, I think, is in his second or third year, and no one really expected North Carolina to come out of the woodwork like this. But here they are. This week is also the SEC tournament, which I think is a 2-week thing. Is a 2-week thing. I'm sure it's a 2-week thing just because I'm seeing Florida is a TBA. So I'm certain next week is the tournament final and semifinals and so on and so forth. Saturday, we have number 1 Nebraska at number 17 Indiana. That's going to be an interesting matchup. So expect that crowd to be really full, because you've got Nebraska fans that are passionate for their Huskers. You got Indiana fans who are passionate for their Hoosiers. So expect a full house. And then Sunday, we have North Carolina at Miami. That is going to be a really good one. And, man, if there's ever a match for either of those teams to win, it's that one. I mean, Miami is number 14 in the ABCA standings. North Carolina is number 15 in the ABCA standings. What'll be interesting is if North Carolina wins both of its matches this week and then Miami somehow loses. then Miami would go down. But again, USC and Indiana and the other teams that are like 18, 19, and 20, they're all probably thinking, can both of these teams lose? But I digress. I guess I should also mention that on Saturday, is it Saturday? Oh, no, I'm on Sunday. So I'm sorry. Saturday, I'm going to UC Irvine's match against Cal Poly, which that's their senior night. Well, it's UC Irvine's senior night. And then that's the last day of the regular season in terms of the Big West. So that's going to be really fascinating matchup right there, just because I imagine that UC Irvine is not going to be playing on Terraflex because it's a 1 p.m. start time. I imagine UC Irvine has a men's basketball match that day later on. So I imagine there's not going to be any Terraflex on. So we shall see. We shall see indeed. And also keep an eye on San Diego Pepperdine this week, just because San Diego's won 14 straight matches. That's a team I need to start giving more love to, just because the Toreros, they're leading the West Coast Conference with an iron fist. My only thing is for the Toreros is that will they be ready for the NCAA tournament? We'll have to wait and see. But honestly, San Diego is going to be a really interesting team going into the big dance, because it's safe to say the Toreros are going to be winning the WCC. But we'll have to wait and see. But that'll do it for the NCAA Women's Volleyball Week 13 preview. We're going to take ourselves a quick commercial break. But first, let's actually acknowledge a few people in the chat room, such as Brian Francione. He says, "Good evening, Teran. Have a great show." Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you. And then Larry B says, "Let's go, Teran." I appreciate you, Larry. All right, let's take ourselves a quick commercial break. When we come back, we've got some AVP to discuss, a little high school girls volleyball to discuss, and a little NCAA men's volleyball and some commitments and whatnot. So keep it locked here. You're listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hockey fans, I'm Adam Kernick.
And I'm Zach Puplis.
Together, we are the newest version of Hockey Talk on IE Sports Radio, The Neutral Zone.
Zone.
We love hockey, but we also know it's not everyone's first sport. So we want to make this show as much for new fans as for the diehards.
Whether you can name all the Swedes on the 08 Red Wings Stanley Cup team, or if you can't tell if Varlamov is a goalie or the latest trendy vodka, we're here to help. With facts, figures, and outrageous fans, we bring you all the hard-hitting hockey news you can handle, while still keeping it fun and on the rails. Well, mostly.
So tune in every week as we go around the hockey world, from college to Canada, the minors and the majors, and everywhere in between.
So bring your cellies.
And your one-timers.
You wicked wristas.
And be sure to protect your five-hole.
Catch the Neutral Zone every week on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
We promise not to pick on the Arizona Coyotes every episode.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Davidson.
It's your boy, Dentarius Lava.
And we are the hosts of Fast Break here on IE Sports Radio, where we discuss everything in the world of basketball from prep to the pros.
You guys should definitely check us out, man. Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We got all the basketball information you guys need, so we look forward to you guys listening in.
And please do, because we are the best basketball show on this side of the Mississippi. And please do check us out on Twitter at FastBreakISR. D-Lock, where's our time again?
8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That give you guys plenty of time on a Sunday.
Tune in.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr., and I'm welcoming you to take another lap with the fastest show on IE Sports Radio. Yes, this is the Extra Mile with me and my co-hosts Christopher Lehman and Michael Ward. We talk everything racing from NASCAR to IndyCar to Formula One to limited hydroplanes, endurance racing, the NHRA, and more. So come join us for an hour of great racing talk and a lot of fun as well on the Extra Mile, Thursdays at 8 p.m. only on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows. They're all dedicated to sports all across the world. We have motorsports, we have basketball, we have hockey, we have football. We even have some fantasy football. So if you need any fantasy football advice, definitely check out that show with Glenn Ritter and Josh Ritter. It's called End Zone Oracle, which I think is a pretty darn good name if you ask me, but I digress. We're here to talk volleyball here, so let's get back on into the action. So we're actually going to jump to the AVP. So the AVP has just released its 2026 schedule, and look, I know people aren't really on the AVP train like they were in the past. I know AVP is kind of the past prime of what it used to be, and that's no disrespect to the AVP. I mean, the AVP has been around for I think 70 years, and I think it's pretty darn impressive. It's just that, unfortunately, we just haven't been able to see it just hasn't been able to evolve. So I won't give up on the AVP and whatnot just because, it produces Olympians like Misty May and April Ross and Sarah Hughes and Kelly Chang and so on and so forth. Anyway, so the 2026 AVP schedule. So the first week actually starts on April 17th through the 19th. That will be the AVP Austin Open, or just the Austin Open. So that's pretty cool if you ask me. Austin's going to be the first place to start the AVP season. You would think they would start in California just because Manhattan Beach is kind of the mecca, but they decided to start off with the AVP Heritage Contenders. So start off with, I guess they want to start off a little small and then jump to like the big Heritage major tournaments. So yeah, the AVP Austin Open is on April 17th through the 19th. Then the Huntington Beach Open will be on May 15th all the way through the 17th. That is a tournament I love to attend. I can't imagine myself not attending. I love me some Huntington Beach Open. It's basically in my backyard, which I think is pretty nice if you ask me. So anyway, Huntington Beach Open is on May 15th through the 17th. That is actually the first AVP Heritage Major, which I think is pretty nice if you ask me. They've got 3 Heritage major tournaments. Huntington Beach Open, the Belmar Open. Belmar, that's interesting. And then they've got the granddaddy of them all, the Manhattan Beach Open, where if you win that, then you basically get your name plaqued on the Manhattan Beach. Or the Manhattan Beach Pier. So, yeah, those are 3 of the major tournaments. The AVP will also be going to Pompano. That's going to be on May 23rd and 24th, so just a 2-day tournament. Then they've got Virginia Beach on June 13th and 14th. July 3rd through the 5th is the Denver Open. July 8th through the 10th is the Waupaca Open. September 5th through the 7th is the Mother Lode Open. Mother Lode. Okay. And then the Laguna Beach Open is September 18th through the 20th. And then the end of the AVP season is on September 25th through the 27th in the Midwest Open. I hear that's going to be in Illinois, but I can't be certain. They just literally are. It's like you can't just like put the location of where it's going to be. Why do you got to like? Why do you have to put Midwest Open? Why can't you just put like something a little bit more specific? Anyway, but for the AVP League, they've got Aspen, Colorado, Miami, Florida, Las Vegas, Nevada, Sin City. Where are they going to hold it at? Allegiant Stadium? Or do they plan on having it at like UNLV or something? We'll see. Anyway, so week 1 is in Aspen, Colorado. Week 2, Miami, Florida. Week 3, Las Vegas, Nevada. Week 4, Atlantic City, New Jersey. Week 5 is in Los Angeles. I imagine it's going to be an Intuit Dome. Week 6 is in Central Park, New York. Week 7 is in East Hampton, New York. So back-to-back New York weeks in the AVP League. And then week 8 is Dallas, Texas. So interesting that there's no Austin. So are they going to replace the Austin Aces with like the Colorado Crush or the Colorado Aces? We still have yet to see the AVP League teams. So we shall see. But anyway, yeah, the AVP season is right around the corner. By the way, the AVP League Championship will be on September 5th through the 6th. And just like last year, it'll be in Chicago, Illinois, the Windy City. So there you have it right there. So that's that for the AVP season. I can't wait for the AVP season. I know people like to bag on the AVP saying that it's not as good as it was back in the day, or it's just not, it doesn't have the funds or whatnot. But as long as it's still around, I'm going to support it and still cover it. So there you go. All right, that is that for the AVP. Let's get into a few NCAA men's volleyball commitments. So on the men's side, we recently had Logan Hutnick of Huntington Beach commit to USC. Now, this was not on my radar. I thought he was going to commit to Long Beach State. He looks like a Long Beach State guy. But USC landed a big one right there. That is one talented player that they got. Logan Hutnick, his film is ridiculous if you've seen it. And I don't want to compare him to this player right away, but I feel he's comparable to like TJ DeFalco or something like that. So Hutnick is a fantastic player, and the sky's the limit for him, and USC landed a big one. And then I guess also Teddy Mendelbaum of Mira Costa is committed to UCLA, and then Logan Gray of Perry, Arizona is committed to Long Beach State. So Mendelbaum, I think, is a setter, I want to say. He does play for Mira Costa, but he didn't really get a chance to be part of he didn't get a chance to be part of the rotation for USC, or not for USC, for Mira Costa, just because Mira Costa just had a set starting lineup. They had a set starting lineup and whatnot. So Teddy Mendelbaum is going to be rather okay. So he's an outside hitter. So I wasn't even close when I said setter. Anyway, but yeah, Teddy Mandelbaum is going to be rather something. He's only a junior, and he's going to be key just because Mateo Furbringer can't carry that team forever, and he certainly can't, period. So Teddy Mandelbaum is going to be a great fit for the UCLA Bruins. He'll get to be reunited with Grayson Bradford, even though Bradford only played 1 year at Mira Costa. And then Logan Gray of Perry, Arizona, committed to Long Beach State, which I thought was pretty nice. Long Beach State has gotten some good recruits and good commitments as of late. So Long Beach just continues to get richer and richer, and hopefully for everyone else's sake, they can keep up. So those are some NCAA men's volleyball players that recently committed last week. The one that really blew me away was Logan Hutnick, just because I really thought he was going to Long Beach State, but he is going to USC, which they're already loaded as is with Sterling Foley and whatnot. So that's big. So anyway, moving on. That's going to do it for the high school boys volleyball / NCAA men's volleyball side of things. Now let's talk some high school girls volleyball. So high school girls volleyball. So I'll only preview Division I and the Open Division just because I don't want to take too much of your time away, and just because these are kind of the premier divisions. So in terms of Division I, the CIF state semifinals, on the NorCal side, you've got James Logan versus Wood Creek. So, oh man, so I have not seen James Logan in a minute. They've only lost one away game. I got to see James Logan back in the summer at Queens of the Court, but I haven't gotten to see them ever since, just because I'm only exclusive to Southern California. Wood Creek, on the other hand, this is an interesting squad because they have yet to lose a game at home. Oh, man. James Logan, I've seen them play, and they play super scrappy. and they are definitely a good team. And I think this team is kind of at its peak in that they've been in a hot minute. At the same time, Wood Creek is pretty darn good themselves, just because they've got some good height on their team. They've got a 6'3" senior outside pin hitter. They've got a 6'2" freshman middle. James Logan, on the other hand, who do they have? They don't really strike me as the tall type. Like, according to their roster, it looks like their team has no 6-footers, which is very surprising. All right, but looking at the rosters on paper, it just looks like Wood Creek just checks off most of the boxes, and they're playing at home. Look, nothing against James Logan, but I just feel with the athleticism that Wood Creek has, I just think that they're going to win this one. I expect James Logan to give them a battle, but I think Wood Creek is destined to pretty much win that one. The only way that Wood Creek doesn't win is if James Logan just plays the match of their lives. Or I'm just missing someone because their roster on Max Preps doesn't give me the whole details. Anyway, so next for the SoCal region, we've got Santa Margarita at Harvard Westlake. Now, this is an interesting matchup. So it's Mission League versus Trinity League, or Trinity League versus Mission League. You get the point. So Santa Margarita has only lost one set all-state tournament. And you got to remember that this is the same Santa Margarita team that wound up winning the CIF Southern section in Division II, which I thought was pretty good, in my opinion. Their lone set that they dropped in the state tournament was against San Marcos of San Diego. But other than that, they ran through pretty much everyone. They even handled Temecula Valley really well, which I thought was very good, in my opinion. So, to me, Santa Margarita obviously has players like Ireland Real, Kate Jackson, and Memphis Burnett. That's kind of their big three. Maybe a little Ella Opene on the side. Santa Margarita's biggest strength is that they serve really tough. I think that's going to be their key if they want to take down Harvard Westlake. Now, Harvard Westlake, as we all know, they were in the Division I cut. They made it all the way to the Division I quarterfinals in the Southern section. But my thing is for Harvard Westlake is that they've actually needed to go 5 in their last 2 rounds. So after beating San Marcos of Santa Barbara in convincing fashion, they needed 5 to take down Long Beach Poly. Bear in mind, Harvard Westlake has home court advantage all throughout the regional playoffs. But they needed 5 to beat Long Beach Poly, even though Poly is a very scrappy team. And then they also needed 5 to beat Bishop Montgomery, which was pretty surprising as well, just because Bishop Montgomery was kind of like the Cinderella of this whole run. They were the 12 seed. They offended the 5 seed on the road, La Jolla County Day. They took down West Ranch on the road, which was even more impressive. And then they just fell short against Harvard Westlake. So Harvard Westlake does have some studs on their team. They've got one girl going to Northwestern. I believe that is Maya Stillwell. She is a stud beyond belief. They've also got her sister, which I forget her name, Lucy Stillwell. So, yes, Lucy Stillwell, only a sophomore. They've also got other good players on their team as well. I mean, this team, I look at this team and I think, where's their breakout win? They don't really have too many breakout wins. The only reason why they made the CIF Southern Section Division I cut is because they didn't have one bad loss, and they also play in the Mission League, which is pretty darn impressive too. So that being said, I think it's Santa Margarita's time to shine. I think Santa Margarita upends Harvard Westlake. It's going to be a close one just because I think for Santa Margarita, if they think they're going to walk into the Harvard Westlake gym and get an easy win, I think they've got another thing coming just because Santa Margarita is a very talented team, but they're not without their flaws. They needed 5 to beat West Ranch. I think that this is going to be their first true test since facing West Ranch. I think their first true test of the postseason altogether. And I feel this is Santa Margarita's time to shine just because they have the talent. And this is also the battle of the first-year head coaches. Chandler Gibb of Santa Margarita and Morgan Weejay of Harvard Westlake, who I also mentioned that Morgan Weejay is the mother of London Weejay. So there you have it. I got Santa Margarita upending Harvard Westlake, but it's going to be a barn burner. It's going to be a nail biter. It's going to be close. And then we've got in the open division on the NorCal side of things, Rockland at Archbishop Mitty. And then we've also got Mater Dei at Sierra Canyon on the SoCal side of things. So a long story short, remember how I said St. Francis was going to be a dark horse team to watch for? Well, they got upended by Rockland. And Rockland wound up beating Branson. Well, that was the first round, the round one, and then the regional semifinals or the state quarterfinals. Rockland upended Branson on the road in 5, which was pretty darn good. So now they face the number 1 overall seed Archbishop Mitty, who has only allowed one team to surpass 20 points all state tournament, and that was Folsom. Archbishop Mitty took down Redwood in the first round, and then they took down Folsom in the regional semifinals, aka the state quarterfinals. This time around is going to be rather interesting, but let's keep it a buck. Archbishop Mitty is the best team in Northern California. They wound up winning the highest division in the CIF Northern California division, Northern California section. I just don't see Rockland defeating Archbishop Mitty. So I'll take Archbishop Mitty over Rockland. And then we have Mater Dei at Sierra Canyon. So both these teams have had rather interesting paths to the regional finals. So Sierra Canyon started off its path by defeating Miracosta at home in 4. And then they took down Marymount the 4th time this season in 4 sets as well. And then for Mater Dei, they swept Redondo Union, not without a little drama in the first set, where the first set they wound up taking 29-27. I was at that match. And then the regional semifinals or the state quarterfinals, they took down Torrey Pines in 4. That Torrey Pines team was out for blood. That Torrey Pines team was really good. And the fact that Mater Dei avoided a 5th set was huge, because Torrey Pines threw everything in the kitchen sink at Mater Dei, because they did not want to see their season come to an end, especially since they have the Finley Kristowiak. But now it's Mater Dei at Sierra Canyon. Sierra Canyon, like I mentioned, the number 1 overall seed in terms of the regions, gets home court advantage through the regional playoffs. This is an interesting matchup. So Mater Dei lost to Sierra Canyon, as we all know. I thought there was some good within Mater Dei. I just thought that Sierra Canyon was so much better than them after that first set and after they erased that 5-point deficit. So here's my thing. If Mater Dei wants to beat Sierra Canyon, they're really going to need to serve tough. They have to make sure the ball doesn't go to Kendall Omarui. And if they do, they really got to put up a big block. Here's an interesting stat from Sierra Canyon. They have not lost a match in California this year. They have not lost a match in the state of California this year. Their only losses are in Hawaii, and then their only other loss was in Las Vegas. They've lost to Byron Nelson in Hawaii in the Ankang tournament, Redondo Union in the Ankang tournament, and then they also lost to Marymount in the Durango tournament in Las Vegas, Nevada. So Sierra Canyon has yet to lose in California this year, which I think is pretty impressive. They also have yet to lose a best 3 out of 5 match. So Mater Dei, on the other hand, they've only lost 2 best 3 out of 5 matches. One was to Redondo Union all the way back in September, and then obviously Sierra Canyon in the Southern Section Division 1 final. Who do I have winning this one? Oh my God, this is tough. I mean, I want to say Mater Dei has a shot, but Sierra Canyon I think they just have the blueprint. And even though that team is just mainly comprised of juniors and just only 2 seniors, I just got to go with Sierra Canyon. I think Sierra Canyon is a very, very, very good team. And even though they've only been with one another for less than a year, I think their talent and overall gameplay is going to overwhelm Mater Dei. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Mater Dei won. I just think that Sierra Canyon just has the pieces to beat Mater Dei. They have the tools to beat Mater Dei, and personally, I think Sierra Canyon is just going to do that. Will it be easy? Of course not. I think Mater Dei is going to throw everything and more at Sierra Canyon, and they want to be determined to take down Sierra Canyon. But Sierra Canyon has not won the CIF State Open Division Championship in the highest division. They have yet to accomplish that feat. They did win the CIF Southern section in 2022, but they did lose to Miracosta in the regional semifinals, which eventually lost to the eventual champion Cathedral Catholic. But that said, I think this is Sierra Canyon's time to shine. I think we're destined. I think no matter who wins between Sierra Canyon and Mater Dei, I just think Archbishop Mitty is going to really come. Archbishop Mitty is going to be a tough opponent for either Mater Dei or Sierra Canyon. And if we get Sierra Canyon, Archbishop Mitty, it'll be round 2 between the Trailblazers and the Monarchs of Mitty. But if we get Mater Dei versus Archbishop Mitty, then it's the Battle of the Monarchs, which I think is pretty darn cool if you ask me, which we haven't gotten since 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago when Mater Dei wound up winning state. But that's pretty much who I have advancing. I have Wood Creek and Santa Margarita advancing in Division 1. And then the open division, I've got Archbishop Mitty and Sierra Canyon advancing. So that'll do it for the high school girls volleyball talk. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I greatly appreciate you. I will be back next week for another episode, and I should be at a volleyball match near you this week, probably on Saturday when I attend UC Irvine for Cal Poly, UC Irvine on UC Irvine Senior Night, and then obviously I will be attending the CIF State Championships in Division 1 and in the Open Division on Friday and on Saturday. So until then, have yourself a great rest of the week. Enjoy all the volleyball action, and I will see you at the next volleyball match. Have a great week, everybody. Peace.
Yeah.